You're listening to Gamertag Radio.
All right, here's a non-E3 one.
Sure.
Trump.
Yeah. That was interesting.
So, for those that don't know, explain what happened, and then we'll go from there.
Well, so there was a school shooting at Marjorie Douglas High School in Florida. I think I might have had the name wrong. It was down in Florida in Lakeland. And it was just a tremendous, sad situation. I think 18 people were killed. Anytime a school shooting happens, we'd be on high alert because we know what follows with that, which is video games going to get blamed, especially when it's like a high school or any sort of school environment. And so we were already pretty stunned at the news that was going on in Florida and, preparing like, okay, we need to keep our eye out or, does the shooter play games? Did he have any history of like violence or anything like that? Like what do we know about this? So we might have to prepare for it. And I'd always kind of felt like I have a feeling we might get dragged into this because I was there in 2012 after the Newtown shooting and we got called into the principal's office again with the government with Joe Biden. And he had some words for like, hey, you guys, there's a great article you can read about it. He like yelled at us and was like, somebody do something, because the game industry was like, well, it's not our fault. And he was upset about it and it ended up working out. But I just kind of always from that moment, I just felt like, people are always going to play games for violence. And so you got to be, on heightened alert when this thing happens and we got to be ready for it.
Yeah. What
we weren't ready for was that Sarah Huckabee Sanders was going to just mention us out of nowhere. From what had happened was, I think it was 2 or 3 days after the school shooting, there was a question in the White House press scrum to her about, what are you guys doing about gun violence in America? And she had said, well, we're doing this, and then we're meeting with top video game executives to discuss ways to curb gun violence. No contact had been made by the Trump administration to anybody, to us or to anyone about that. It was like something that just was said. And then we're sitting in our office. We have TVs on all the time with the news. And we're like, wow, we just got mentioned in our industry just got mentioned. What is going on here? So there was a scramble to kind of figure out like, who did they talk to? Did they talk to anyone? Well, they hadn't talked to anybody. And in fact, from what we'd heard, it was kind of like, she just slipped the tongue that they had discussed maybe doing this. And it was like a slip of the tongue that someone else in the administration had said, well, let's have a meeting with the game industry. And so she got flummoxed by the question about gun violence. The journalists were not going to let this one go. And so she pulled out games because, why not? It's something everyone else does. Over the next week, it was like a big debate of do we go? Do we not? Do we do this? Is this actually going to happen? At points, it seemed like this was just going to fade away and it wasn't going to be a thing. And then suddenly it became something that got in the news. And so Trump's attention got on it. So he said, I'm going to have a meeting. And it came down to, there was a meeting with Trump. And it was pretty famous that, ESA had to go and meet with Trump. And what it came down to was they had gotten a coalition of people who have been very anti-video games and games violence, in the past. And that was going to be the people he was going to talk to. So we got involved and we brought people to the table like Robert Altman from, Bethesda. I believe Strauss Zelnick from Take-Two went. And so they went in and we'd brought this graph that went out in 2012. There was this study about games and violence and about who plays the most games and who has the most gun violence. And you can probably figure out what that chart looks like. USA has the same games usage as all the other nations, but we have the gun problem. Japan doesn't have the gun problem. Germany doesn't have the gun problem. Britain doesn't have the gun problem. Everyone's got this gun. Everyone's got games being played, but they don't have the violence issue. So our graphic designer, Melanie, who just, she knew Trump is Trump. She just put a big red dot that said USA on the graph. And like, that was the graph we brought in.
Yeah.
And what I'd been told was, the meeting started with Trump showing that reel of violent video games. And if you're a gamer, they picked some games that, gamers would know. Like they had somebody on staff who knew their violent games. They had good taste in violent video games.
Didn't that video was posted on the White House YouTube channel.
So that we'll get to that, but yes, it did. And there's a reason that's a little frustrating too.
Yeah.
So they brought this video in, and it was like a who's who of violent games, and there was some recent stuff and even trailers. There was games that people sitting in that room, those are their games that the president's showing them a video, and he just looks at the video and he goes, "Pretty violent stuff, huh, guys?" And the conversation kind of exchanges, and we had said, "Look, here's the graph." He saw the graph. Marco Rubio was in the meeting. Trump saw the graph and was like, "We got a problem here, Marco," right? And gave him the graph. And then after that was really it. There really wasn't a whole lot going on.
That was more for press, man.
It was more for press. And it was, one of the things was there was a big debate. Is it going to be open to press? Is it not going to be open to press? And it ended up not being open to press. And I have a theory for why that happened. We'll get to on the story here is they did the video. They, met. It was a pretty tame meeting. I don't think Donald Trump really cared. I think he just knew he's going through the motions to, maybe this will get us off of the gun violence issue because we did this. Nothing substantial came out of it. But then afterwards, the White House puts out a press statement and uploads the YouTube video they showed to the official YouTube White House. And in the statement, they say, there may be some connection between games and violence, which we had shown, well, there isn't. And so they kind of just said it anyway and didn't really listen to anything that it said because it's still there. It says, games, there may be games that cause violence. And that is the reason that's a big deal. And that video getting uploaded to YouTube is every single thing that the White House uploads on official channels gets archived. So that is American history now, that violence in video games, that video will be there forever. As long as there's a United States, you will be able to find that video. And that means that now there is an official statement in the archive of the White House acknowledging video games may cause violence. And also, here's a hit list of the best violent video games because somebody on that staff definitely plays violent games and I knew exactly what games to throw on that one.
And the thing that got me curious was they had that video unlisted on their YouTube channel. It wasn't officially there.
I think what had happened was they put it up there unlisted to make it easier. I've done that times where someone's like, "Hey, can I have a video for a press? I'm doing a slideshow on PowerPoint. Can you put a YouTube video online for me to go to, click a link to?" Yeah, it's unlisted. If you have the link, you got it. Well, someone got the link, it got out, and then next thing you know, it became more public. So it's out there and it's there, but at the end of it, though, I remember after the meeting, it went well. Nothing came out of it. It's not like any regulations were going to be proposed. It's not like the industry made some promise to, do $1 million ad campaigns to brighten its image. It was just kind of like a stale, nothing, the best possible result could have happened. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
Later that night, it's reported Donald Trump had gotten a letter from Kim Jong-un. And he comes out that night to say they're going to have the first North Korea U.S. summit, and it's happening during E3. It was happening at June 11th or 12th was when they were going to do it. And it started to make sense why Trump probably wasn't that interested or didn't want to make a big deal out of this, or why he closed that meeting to reporters is because the bigger story was coming that night. And that was, I've got a handwritten letter from the dictator of North Korea who wants to meet with me.
This is going to create a buzz.
And then I thought to myself, I was like, you couldn't ask for a greater news because now it's buried the video game thing because it was such a nothing story. So now that's buried because everyone's talking about North Korea now. So, that's also kind of, why I think Trump didn't seem to care from what we understand. And it's just, I think he had a bigger thing on his plate, which was North Korea, and North Korea is a bigger play for him than the hackneyed video games cause violence debate. They got brutalized by the media for that. That was the most I've seen media take our side on the debate ever. Sometimes you'll see even left-leaning sites go, games cause violence, we need to regulate. And, it's an issue that right and left will band together on because it's easy points. It's an easy finger to point at and blame.
Yeah,